There was a Danish police officer who saw a UFO above his car. His name was Morup, and this is a very famous Danish case. There have been UFO sightings in Greenland for a long time. Benefit of this research is tremendous to our society. UFO sightings connected with military operations have existed for a very long time. There were several UFO incidents during that exercise in the EU. They want to create this drone shield, finding out that there's a non-human intelligence actually operating on this planet, which is my personal view, that there is somebody else here other than us. The question is just now, who is it, right? I made all these DVDs and I sent them to all the members of the Danish parliament. The UAP topic is actually one of the topics that could unite the Americans and could unite the world in a good sense, I hope.
Hello everyone and welcome to the first European UAP Talk of 2026, and today I have here Frederik Uldall, and we will talk about not just Denmark but also a bit of Greenland, since it's a huge topic and there may be some UFO hotspots there, so that's something we may cover. But let me first introduce Frederik. Frederik Uldall has a background in social science, specifically in geography and in political science. For a long time, he senses a great potential in that UAP topic can bring big changes in our society, and that's why he is a long-time advocate for UAP transparency in Denmark, but also in Europe. In 2007, he established activist organization Exopolitics Denmark. This initiative has now been closed. However, he hosted there many speakers in Copenhagen, for example, George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, Mary Rodwell, Paola Harris, Gary Hesseltine, but actually many others. Also, he is interested in the academic world in this. So Frederik Uldall now is the founder and director of Danish Network for UAP Studies, which serves as a cross-disciplinary academic forum on scientific UAP research. So that's kind of all for the beginning. Let me welcome here Frederik Uldall. Hello, Frederik. How are you doing?
Hello, Jan. Thank you for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, we've already actually met at the Soul Foundation in Baveno. We'll talk a bit about that as well, but let me just ask you in the beginning, how did you get started in this field of UFOs, and what kept you interested in these issues?
I think I started in the zeros. I think I saw some military witnesses in the zeros, and it was just a time when the internet had gotten enough bandwidth, so you could actually see some of this information and all these whistleblowers that actually came forward at that time. I mean, today we see a lot of whistleblowers coming forward, but back then they were actually also there. I mean, not testifying before Congress as they are doing now, but I think that made a huge impression on me, and I think that I just thought to myself, this is going to be a huge topic at some point in time. I didn't know when. But now I feel the ball is really started rolling. So I just thought to myself, okay, back then, now we need some activism. And I really hopped on the bandwagon of a American activist named Stephen Bassett, who is still active in the United States. And we were some people in Denmark that took the initiative to establish something called Exopolitics Denmark, which was a activist association where we really tried to raise awareness about this issue. And it was really hard back then because the stigma and the taboo was immense back then. I mean, it was not that we were really ridiculed, and we got some attention in the media as well, but it was very hard to get things going back then. So that we started going to some conferences abroad, and we also started, as you mentioned, to invite some people to Copenhagen. You mentioned George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, for example, but also people like Richard Dolan, for example, and Robert Hastings and Timothy Good, and some names in the community back then. But now I think that the time is, we have closed down Exopolitics Denmark. I think the time now is ready and ripe for starting up initiatives has to do with science. I mean, because the stigma is starting to being reduced within the scientific community in the United States, but also in Europe. And I think now you are having this talk, I mean, this podcast called European UAP Talk, right? So I think it's a great opportunity to promote science in Europe as well. And I think the time is ready. I mean, people in the scientific community in Europe are not quite aware of it yet, but now that there's so many initiatives around the world, scientific, like proper, rigorous scientific initiatives going on, like for example, Arbe Loeb's Galileo project, and we got UAPX at the University of Albany, and we got something called IFEX in Germany. So there are all these initiatives starting up, and we're just saying here in Denmark, we want to create a network now, and really hope that some Danish scientists, they will come into this network and start talking to each other and start doing some science. So this is why we have established this Danish network for UAP studies, which is basically a meeting forum. It doesn't have any kind of agenda like Exopolitics Denmark, the former association that I started. But this is just, and you cannot become a member of it. It's just kind of a meeting forum or a meeting room that we hope the scientists will come into, and I hope we should be able to have a meeting or a scientific symposium here in 2026.
Okay, that's wonderful. So it actually a bit reminds me of what the Seoul conference was, that it was a meeting and sharing different ideas. And then there actually were many different topics. And I remember that one of the ladies speaking there, she was like, we were talking that there's a stigma, but then you are at a place like this where there are many academic people, and actually you see that there's no stigma anymore in certain way. Of course, depends where you live and what your surrounding is, but the conversation is now open. So that's quite important. And just to tell the viewers, if you are not aware what Sol Foundation is, it is an organization which is dedicated to UAP research made by Professor Gary Nolan. And those activities were mostly of the Sol Foundation were mostly focused on USA, but we were lucky last year that they decided to come to Europe. For me, it was a huge experience. I was really happy to be there. And do you have your own takeaways? I'm sure you do from that.
Yes, absolutely. I think
Right.
it was a great opportunity. As soon as I saw it, I said, okay, this is a great opportunity, because the first two Seoul conference symposiums, they were in California, and Gary Nolan and Peter Skafish and okay, Jonathan Baird, he's in Europe, but it has kind of an affiliation, loose affiliation, probably it's fair to say, to Stanford University. But now that the Americans were actually coming to Europe, and they are hosting it at this beautiful place at something called Lago Maggiore in just north of Milan, I just thought, okay, I'm definitely going to this. It was a bit expensive, of course, but I think it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to go there, and it really, I think, illustrated that Europe is catching on now. I mean, and as you also mentioned, there were many different topics at this symposium, but one of the topics, I mean, a general theme was that Europe should start to pay interest in this, both from a scientific point of view, but also from a political point of view. And the fact that for example, you had a sitting member of the European Parliament, Fabio De Masi, he was there, and he was not scared to go on stage and talking about that this should be a topic in the EU, and he plans on inviting people from the United States and also the French researchers to the European Parliament, and starting to get this into, I mean, the normal mainstream political framework within the EU. I think this was a great moment. And also, I mean, the caliber of the people who were there were scientists, there were, you could see, I mentioned a politician, also whistleblowers from the United States, the whistleblowers like Jeff Nusatelli and Jake Barber, who had been like huge names in 2025. They came there, and it was a great opportunity to see these people. But there were so many different topics like there as well. Also, you could say real hardcore science, as for example, by Beatrice Villarroel from Sweden, who had just published some articles in, I think it was in Nature or at least it had gone through normal peer review process, but also that you had traditional hardcore science, but you were also talking about like new epistemologies, like there was a physicist from Austria, Karl Schwoesel. He talked about that this Paul Feyerabend and this methodological anarchy that we should have maybe in the beginning, and explore all kinds of new scientific ways of dealing with this topic, and then later on maybe try to use a more stringent and more maybe in public scientific community's eyes, a more legitimate approach, like with Karl Popper with this falsification. So it just illustrated that there were so many different topics on the table, but there were also a huge footprint from the French research community. First of all, of course, with Jacques Vallée, but also with a guy named Luc Denis and Pierre Pescon and Michel Vaillant, I think his name is. So they illustrated that the French actually have had a tradition, a UFO research, proper research UFO tradition in France for a very, very long time. And I think the public in Europe is not really aware of this.
Yeah.
So bringing this research tradition also into European, common European setting and also into the EU is a huge opportunity, I think. So we should pay attention to the French, and the French is probably the ones in Europe who can lead this in this independence movement that is actually going on in Europe, broader independence movement that is going on in Europe at the moment.
And I mean, it is not just them. You mentioned Beatrice Villarroel, which is from Sweden, and of course Dennis Esberg. Then also, as you mentioned, the Würzburg
Oh yeah,
in
yes, yes.
Germany.
Hmm.
So yeah, things are happening. And I understand that probably was the Soul Foundation was kind of inspiration for the Danish network for UAP studies, that you might have similar goals. And are you interested just in the Danish people or in the European kind of?
It's mainly it's focused on Denmark, I would say, because this is a kind of this is an unfunded project, so to speak. This is all spare time and on a voluntary basis. So we're trying to focus it only on Danish scholarly research. So it's a network for scholars in Denmark and for students. So you could say the Soul Foundation is a bit more broader because they also have elements like governance and education and recommendations to state institutions, and we don't have that at the moment, at least, because we are kind of few people, and this is something we have daytime jobs. This is something we're doing in our spare time. So I think we're focusing on that and not kind of broadening it out too much that we cannot manage it. So I think the goals, we just take one step at the time. And I think we will have a symposium here in Copenhagen during, that's at least the goal of having it here in 2026, and maybe also having some online presentations. And just to get Danish researchers, scholars, and students interested. And I'm already compiling a list about of these people so we can send it out to people. And we also had a lot of interest coming in after a guy named Gert Friis Eriksen, who's also on our board. Him and I, we went on Danish morning television here in December, on the 6th of December, and we introduced this network. So of course, there were people after we had been on TV that contacted us and said, "Hey, this sounds really, really interesting." Yes, it is interesting. So, and what can we do? I mean, and I'm just urging people to do their research. I cannot provide funding for them, but if we have the role of taking some of the stigma and some of the taboo out of it and just creating a platform where people can meet, that's the first step, I would say. So, and it was also when we were on television here in December, I was also an opportunity just to introduce to the Danish population our network, of course, but also it came at the time of this release of this Age of Disclosure documentary from the United States, which is also a very high caliber documentary that I think that I can highly recommend people watching.
I saw that interview of yours that you
Oh,
did
great.
on
Thanks.
TV.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yeah, you did a great job. But I was
Thank you.
quite, surprised that I mean, it's in a good way that that this team got into TV in Europe, because here in Czech Republic we usually, well, we don't really have that so much. Even like when there was the first hearing with David Grush, which took probably most attention in the world. The second and the third one took less attention. So we were hoping to see it covered in the news in Czech Republic, and not really. We had one panel discussion about it, but they kind of skewed into astronomy and whatever, and that it's not really a trustworthy thing. So unfortunately, we are not that far, but I guess different countries are a bit in different way. So, for instance, in Denmark was the hearings covered, either of them, or not really, or
Not
no?
really. Also this television interview that Gerd and we were on. I just wrote them and asked them and informed them about it. Sometimes you should just be proactive and tell me what about covering this story, and there has to be kind of a news element to it for them to catch on. I don't think that this idea of that they it's such a big taboo. It's not really that they want to cover it actually because I think they're aware that this is an exciting topic for many people. So actually, they do want to cover it, but kind of the main tier newspapers and television channels. This was national television, but it was morning television, and it's not kind of, you could say, in the really, really serious news in Denmark. But at some point, it will get to that level, but we're not quite there yet. But it has to start somewhere. And I guess, also in Czech Republic, maybe you just have to call up the TV stations when there is something news going on. But I think that for example, the David Grush story in 2023, it was covered a little bit in Denmark. It just barely reached, the nightly news in television news in Denmark, but not really more than that. It doesn't generate a news cycle with lots of questions being asked. So we're not quite at that level. There are other things on the agenda that are people's attention more, like the drone situation, for example, which is, you could say, in some sense, UAP related, and all this Greenland situation that we have. The Danish news this interview here is recorded on the 18th of January. So as we speak, there's just a lot. The Danish news is filled with Greenland stuff, of course, at the moment. So, yeah.
Speaking about the theme of the Greenland, it is a huge topic now because Donald Trump make it a big topic. And
Yes.
what I heard from not just from you, but also from researcher Martin Kleis, who is also a Danish person, is that the Greenland is actually interesting in the view of the UFOs, of the UAP, because there are some interesting hotspots. I will not say the names of the places because I cannot pronounce them, but it seems that it is quite interesting in this matter. So would you like to elaborate on this theme as well?
Yeah, I think it's in UFO circles. You mentioned also the interview on News Nation with Ross Coulthart. I think there is awareness now that there is a hotspot in the southern part of Greenland. Near a town called Narsarsuaq, and especially there is a hotspot around something called Kvanefjeld, which is a mountain where there's a continuous phenomenon, a light phenomenon going on, and it's been going on for quite a while. I haven't looked at it how active the phenomenon is these days, but it has been active for a very long time, and there's definitely something strange going on there. What it is, I don't know. But there is, of course, a lot of speculation in the UFO community about, this is a place where there's rare earth minerals, and there has been a lot of dispute between this mining company and the Danish and the Greenlandic governments about mining this place. The Greenlandic people, they don't want to have this area kind of polluted with these mining activities. So there is probably also uranium there and several rare earth minerals that, of course, the Americans are interested in, of course. But this whole dispute about Greenland that's going on at the moment is completely off the rails. The Danes are furious, and the Greenlanders are furious, and the Greenlandic people are also very nervous about this. But I think that the Trump administration really is out on a limb with this one, because I think most politicians also in the U.S. Congress, we just had a delegation of 11 people from both the House and the Senate who came here. It was a bipartisan delegation, and they just wanted to tell the Danish politicians that we are actually against this move to either conquer Greenland with military force or purchasing it. So we also had here in Copenhagen, and also in In Greenland yesterday, we had huge demonstrations. So the Greenlanders, of course, they are not very pleased with this, and the Danish people are not very pleased with this. So, and the Americans, they have a base up there already, and if they talk to the Danish government, we have had agreement for a very long time, since the 50s, that the Americans, if they want bases there, they can just come and place more soldiers there. So, I mean, there's no need to go against a NATO ally, and I think most Americans that are aware of this, that this is a really, really bad idea. I mean, getting in trouble with another NATO country, because if they invade Greenland, it would be the end of NATO. So what the Danish government and other governments are doing right now, they're sending troops to Greenland. And they're stepping up, you could say, because the Americans, they want us to do that. So now, okay, we're adding more soldiers and ships and planes to Greenland in this exercise called Arctic Endurance. But it's also a signal sending them to them. So if American forces, they move in and try to take Greenland, they're not only stepping on the Greenlanders, of course, first of all, and also on the Danish soldiers, but also kind of Swedish soldiers, German forces, and French soldiers and British soldiers, and so on. So it's a very, very complicated situation now. So and now Donald Trump has just introduced this yesterday. He introduced this idea of putting extra tariffs on all the countries that oppose him on this matter, right? So, and the Europeans are, of course, I mean, they're just shaking their heads. I mean, this is insane. So, yeah.
Well, that's true.
But this hotspot remains. I mean, and if this has anything to do with this, I don't know. Probably not. But the Danish authorities are not really open about these activities. There is some activity going on there, and who is it that is behind this activity in this from a geological point of view and for a mining point of view, a very, very sensitive area in the southern part of Greenland. That remains to be seen who's responsible for this. I would like to know that, because there's something fishy going on. But what it is, I don't know.
The year 2026 just began, and we already have many crazy things happening geopolitically, right? Not just the Greenland, only also Venezuela, Iran, and other stuff. Yeah. So, but this is just it is more or less interesting. Probably it is not related to what Trump wants, the UFO team there. But it's interesting. I also heard that Martin Kleiss interview that the Greenlandian people, they feel that sense that there's some, I don't know, like spirits or whatever, that they feel some sensation on this matter. Whether it's connected to the UFOs, it might be, but
maybe, yeah. I mean, you can urge the people to go and watch the interview on News Nation as well, right? It's with Martin and Ross, and there's also been covered on other podcasts as well. So it's just, I mean, there is information about it out there. So if people are interested in it, they should definitely go and check it out. Yeah, I'm not the expert on this, and it's just a very, very hot topic, Greenland, as we speak. I mean, because this is in January of 2026.
That's true. So all the details I'll link it below the video, and also what I will link is that Soul Foundation started to release the recordings of the talks that happened in Baveno in Italy, and I guess they release one presentation per week or something like that. But if you haven't been there, or even if you've been there, you can watch it again, right? So I'll link that as well. Let's talk about how the people of the Denmark sent the team of UFOs or UAPs. So when you were growing up, did you hear some stories about either UFOs or some, unsolved mysteries in Denmark, or sightings of mermaids, or whatever stories like that?
Yeah, then of course every country has their UFO stories, and Denmark has its UFO stories as well. And I think it's some of the main ones. I think that maybe is also most known internationally is probably there's a police car case from, I think it was 1970. There was a Danish police officer who saw a UFO above his car. His name was Morup, and this is a very famous Danish case. I don't remember it that well, but I've been more interested in other cases that had to do with NATO, because now we have this NATO exercise in Greenland, but also we haven't had one of the first naval exercises that took place after the Second World War was called Operation Mainbrace or Exercise Mainbrace, and that took part in in Danish waters in 1952 in September, from around the 14th of September to around 25th. I can't remember the dates exactly, but it was in September of 52. At the time when Eisenhower, I think he was running for president at that moment. And it was kind of a large scale NATO exercise with around, I think it was around 80,000 people and around 200 ships and around maybe 1,000 planes that took place in the North Sea and also in the Atlantic and the Baltic Sea. There were several UFO incidents during that exercise, and it just illustrates that these UFO sightings connected with military operations have existed for a very long time. And now we have this very, very famous case which is more recent, from 2004, with this Tic Tac episode off the coast of California in 2000 with the USS Nimitz, and we also have the Roosevelt in around 2015, I think, with these Pentagon videos that were released a couple of years ago. But back then, also in 52, we have more or less the same things going on back then. I mean, this is a very long time ago now. So one of these cases, actually, I think it was on the 13th of September, the Operation Mainbrace exercise had not really even started yet at that moment. But then there was a kind of I think it was a luminous bluish triangular object that was observed from a Danish destroyer called the Willemoes in the Baltic Sea in 52, which flew around 1,500 kilometers per hour, so to speak. And there were also, I think there were journalists aboard this Danish destroyer as well. And there was also the FDR, the Franklin D. Roosevelt aircraft carrier, was also present during this exercise. And I think that was a you could say metallic sphere or something observed above this aircraft carrier. And there were also some British pilots who observed a UFO over the North Sea. So this is you could say in some sense a Danish case, which I think is very interesting. And also over the airfield of Karup, which is in the middle of Jutland, there were also observed UFO activity there. So it doesn't seem to kind of, and some of these instances were also mentioned in Project Blue Book, which is also very famous, of course.
And would you say that some of that cases in Denmark, which one would be the most with the most data, with the most trustable and many sources? Is there some case like this?
I think you have to ask a UFO researcher about that. I mean, the knowledge that I have is from other researchers. So, but I mean, the Evald Morup's case with the police officer from I think it was 1970 or 71, in the 70s somewhere. That's a very famous Danish case because it also came from a kind of a police officer. I mean, who are normally considered as very trustworthy. There are, of course, also people in Denmark who claim to have seen beings, but it's very much on a witness-based testimony basis, so anecdotal evidence. So we just want to get more data, and we want to get the scientific community started in Denmark about this, as well as in other countries as well in Europe. We want to kind of get to Europe up to speed and get European scientists interested. So Denmark is stuck, and Europe is not like lagging behind the United States. And this was also a theme on the Seoul Foundation Symposium. Europe has to catch up. This was, I think, also one of the messages that came from Maura Mendrilla, who's a strategy advisor to the Seoul Foundation, and also Fabio De Masi. So, yeah.
Exactly. And I would say one of the reasons why the Europe has to kind of get it serious, and a kind of reason that we can kind of share to the people who are in power, is the things we were experiencing with the drones last year, which were not just over Denmark, but over Germany and other countries. And what I understand is that it is still not solved. It is still kind of mystery.
To me, it's still a mystery. I don't think we have seen, not to my knowledge, we've not seen any really significant drone activity like we had in Copenhagen, at the Copenhagen airport on the 22nd of September in 2025. And also the subsequent incursions in Germany, around Munich, and also I think also in Belgium. And before that, we also had some drone incursions of what is labeled as drone incursions over these military bases like the RAF Ladenkeith and Milton Hall and Feldwell in the UK. But I mean, to me, it's still unresolved. I think the general sentiment in the Danish population is that this was probably Russian or Chinese drones. I think that's what most people in Denmark would think, and I'm definitely not ruling that out. I mean, the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, she was very fast and addressed these incursion as she didn't say it explicitly that it was the Russians, but it was kind of implicit, I would say. And but later on, I mean, the Danish Minister of Defense, he relabeled it as a kind of aerial observations, both suggesting, I think, that it could be more mundane things like a windmill or something else, that he just opened the room for more interpretations. But by opening the room of more interpretation also makes room for like more exotic and more anomalous phenomena. And I think that there are some anomalous phenomena connected with this. A lot of it is, of course, drones, I would think, but there's also observations that are not so easily explained. And I think many of the observations also in New Jersey and the United States, they are quite strange, which has also been demonstrated by the citizen science by the Tedesco brothers, for example, in the United States. So, and this was also a theme at the Seoul Foundation's Symposium last year in Baveno. We had James Fowler from the Skywatcher project, and I remember sitting and watching. I mean, he had this huge map of actually both in the United States, where this progression of these drone sightings has gone on from the West Coast and all the way over the US, many locations in the US, and now also in Europe, actually starting, I think, mostly with the UK, these bases in the UK, but also very significantly for me because I'm in Denmark over the Copenhagen airport, and it really had some consequences because it closed down the Copenhagen airport, and it also closed other places down, and it was also seen at military bases in Denmark, right? So, and later on also other places in Europe. So this is the drone situation is complicated. It's probably you have to probably seek the explanation in many places, but I think it's still pretty much unresolved. In any case, whoever is responsible for this, they are very capable actors. They have significant resources at their disposal, whoever it is.
Yeah. I found interesting that Seoul Foundation that James once said that he also kind of get once he got confused that because he once went up, looked to the sky, and he saw a light, and he was like, "Oh my God, is that a UAP?" And then one of his friends told me, "No, no, no, this is our drone," and he thought it's the mysterious, drone of the New Jersey. So I guess at the night sky, it can be quite not as easy to recognize what the things are, and that's also one of the reasons why Skywatcher always just take the data from the daylight.
Exactly, but they said, I remember didn't you remember? I think I recall that they said that they didn't observe drones during the daytime. I mean, all these anomalous phenomena that they are observing in the Skywatcher project, it's happening during the daytime where they're using this dog whistle technology. The drone situation is mainly during the nighttime, I think.
Yeah.
That's what is the impression that I got from them. But it's going to be interesting when the Skywatcher project, they have gathered all this data, and so now they're getting kind of to the point where they're doing data analysis and also peer review. So it will be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, I'm very curious about it. I'm looking forward. And what was interesting for me to watch between the New Jersey drones and the European, what we saw here in Europe, was more how the governments tried to talk about it. That in USA they were kind of quick to assumptions, that they even said some nonsense like that there's some Iranian mothership or what,
Yeah.
which didn't really make sense. And
No.
for me, I don't know if it's for you. That's why I'm saying how the Denmark was talking about it was more honest. That they were like, "Oh, we don't know what it is." But do you see some differences in this, or?
I think it was more or less the same. Now it has kind of died down, and I think it was at least what the result was here is that now that the Europeans, on like more collectively also in the EU, they want to create this drone shield. Because of course the Russians do have drones. We are certain of that. I mean, they're using them in the war in Ukraine. So where there is a kind of some kind of hidden conspiracy or agenda behind all this to initiate some armament in Europe. I don't know. I mean, it's just the result is that the Europeans, they are spending more and more money on defense, of course, and trying to be more and more independent from the United States. So I think the opinion is mostly in Europe is that it's the Russians doing it, but it doesn't really make total sense to me that it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something else going on. I mean, it's. I'm not ruling out the Russians, of course, but it's more. I think it's more complicated.
Exactly. I have a similar feeling. It could be whatever actually, but we see what the drones that they use at Ukraine, what they do, and these are different. So that's one of the reasons why it is weird. But I hope we get answer to this eventually. Right now, it seems it's not close to getting it, but
Yeah.
let's see. I understood that you're not just interested in studying UAPs, but also a bit about NDAs as your own personal
Oh yeah, yeah.
interest,
Yeah, yeah,
near-death
yeah.
experiences.
Exactly. I'm very interested also in near-death experiences and end-of-life experiences. I think this is also a very promising avenue of research because there's so much also scientific scholarly research in this field as well. So it's what I'm really interested in, promoting and encouraging science in these areas, which can have a huge impact on our society. You could say this is high risk, high stakes research, which is very difficult also for kind of a new PhD student to engage in because there's so much risk in this field, but the payoff or you could say the benefit of this research is tremendous to our society. So, I mean, the consequences of finding out that there's a non-human intelligence actually operating on this planet, which is my personal view, that there is somebody here else than us, and I reiterate this over and over again, there is somebody else here other than us. The question is just now, who is it, right? But let me just stress again, this is not the view of our research network. There will be people joining our network who are not of this opinion, and that's totally okay. I mean, we have to play devil's advocate and discuss these things, but just the mission is just that we can discuss it in this scholarly setting now. That's great. But the near-death experiences is also a huge field of scholarly research, which I'm also following. I'm not really promoting it or doing something actively with it, but I kind of the research that has been doing at the Division of Perceptual Studies in the University of Virginia, I follow, which is very, very interesting. So there is some phenomena there, some anomalies that could mean a huge thing for humanity if it's eventually you're some way able to prove that there is that consciousness continues after bodily death. I mean, that would be a huge breakthrough for us as civilization. So there's some, and also of course the UAP topic. There's so many things that can happen to our society. I mean, the social change or affiliated with UAP topic is just potential is just tremendous, because imagine if you have free energy and you have a kind of transportation where you can go from one side of the planet to the other in a couple of minutes. I mean, it's mind-boggling. You cannot really get a handle on how much it would change our planet, right? And also going to other star systems. I mean, it's beyond. So this is also a very a driving factor for the work that I'm doing. That these actually are possibilities in mind that will or could happen sometime in the future. The question is just when. But we're moving in that direction. I think that's my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. Both of these topics, they are like you are not interested in the small topics, only the biggest ones. And I can share that what I have in as a book list, and might be interesting for you or even for the viewers. I once heard Professor Diana Pasulka mention a book, Otherworld Journeys, accounts of near-death experiences in medieval and modern times, where there are like different stories in the past, and that people in the past were living, experiencing similar NDAs like they are experiencing now. And
Yes.
so I have it saved, and I didn't read it yet, but I want to read it.
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, I can encourage the viewers also to go into to all the books that are about near-death experiences, and you can watch a lot of testimony of
Mm.
uh, from near-death experiences on YouTube as well, where people, and it's, I mean, there's a lot of similarities between these experiences that people have with near-death experiences. They're very interesting to read or and to watch.
Yeah. And I would like to also get to the topic of, a bit of well, activism in ufology, that the people can write the letters to the politician or the media. I like what you mentioned about the media, that when there's a big thing happening in USA, some hearing or whatever, we can a bit recommend to some media to which we trust that, hey, this is an important thing to cover. So, and I understand that you have some history in this, that you try to also write to politicians, talk to them. I do it a bit, not that much, but I also try not to forget it, because I understand that in USA there's lots of people doing it, and this is why they have a success, that there are things happening. And here in Europe we don't really do it, and that's why we're also one of the reasons why we're behind. So if you would like to share some experiences with this.
Yes, I think it's I would always encourage Europeans. I'm a little bit older now, and I was younger when I did the activism. I, for example, took the movie director James Fox. I met him in 2007 in Rome, just before just before he had a press conference at the National Press Club in 2007 with Five Symington, the former governor of Arizona, about this Phoenix Light sighting. So I met James Fox there, and he had made at that point in time, he had made a documentary called Out of the Blue, and I just asked him, can I take this? Can I take your documentary? And it was a time of DVDs, so
Oh.
I copied like 173 or 72. I can't remember how many members of the Danish parliament there are, but around 170 something. And I made all these DVDs, and I sent them to all the members of the Danish parliament at that time. And I was in probably in the early 2008, something like that. And nothing, of course, came out of that. I mean, I heard nothing. I heard zero about it.
Hmm.
But it was an opportunity just to tell the Danish media that, now, look what I've done here. I've done this. I mean, can we talk about this? And that just gives you a ticket, an entrance ticket, to talk about things like this on a podcast or radio show or something like that. So and you can mention that you've done something, and it just creates awareness. So now it's not the time of DVDs anymore, but I would always encourage, like, people. Now we have other documentaries like The Age of Disclosure with Marco Rubio, for example, and many other kind of top tier professionals and witnesses in this film documentary. So why not send this to politicians and try to raise awareness? I mean, I think I'll leave it that to others now. I'm not so much active in activism anymore, but I would always encourage people to do this, especially in Europe, because we here in Europe, we have to get up to speed and get some activities going when it comes to this topic, because we are in the. I fear that we'll be left behind because the US is doing something, and allegedly the Russians and the Chinese, they have their UFO crash retrieval programs, these sub-ROSA programs that David Grosh and I think Carl Nell and other whistleblowers have talked about. So what do the Europeans have? I mean, so
Hmm.
yeah, we have to hop on the bandwagon here in Europe as well. So get some activism going, and I encourage your viewers to start some activism. And it's always easier to start activism when you're young, because then you're more fired up and you have energy. When you get, typically what happens when you get a little bit older, you get a little bit more relaxed. So not that I'm not interested in doing activism. I would always state my opinions about this publicly, but maybe I'll not create huge
Yeah.
projects and inviting international speakers to Copenhagen like we did in the past.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm. No, but I just want to hear your experience, since you've done these things. About I heard this story, how you bring those DVDs. I found it quite interesting.
yeah, I think it can be done again. I mean, I don't know how you would distribute it,
Mm,
but I think
yeah.
that in the United States, I mean, you have these politicians from the UAP caucus in it's bipartisan. I mean, all from who are present at these hearings. You have people like who are vocal on this, all the way from AOC to Matt Gaetz. I mean, from the opposite sides of the political spectrum in the United States, and you have, what's his name, Eric Burleson and Anna Paulina Luna and Mike Gallagher, and you have all kinds of Chuck Schumer and Mike Rounds, I mean, Kirsten Gillibrand, and you have all these politicians from various ends of the political spectrum. So I think this is in the time of so much separation inside the United States, but also between the United States and actually now the rest of the world. The UAP topic is actually one of the topics that could unite the Americans and could unite the world. I mean, in a good sense, I hope. Not that maybe that those who are here are our enemies, but we had to get our act together here on this planet and be more united. I mean, all this story about this Greenland thing is just illustrates that all this separation that's going on, and there's a lot of separation in the United States, a lot of furious people in the United States about all this shooting of these from these ICE agents the other day, and I mean it's just there's so much unrest. So interestingly, the UAP topic is one of the topics where you could have really right wing American politicians agreeing actually and sitting in the same room with left wing politicians in the United States. So I think this is interesting. I'm not really interested in what their opinions are on other subjects. I just focus on, okay, what is it that is our common ground? And I think this is becoming increasingly important in this world with all these geopolitical tensions we have at the moment, that we try to focus on the things that we have in common.
Yeah. And to those who are interested in the activism, I have made an interview with UAP Coalition Netherlands. They have a sample letter for politicians and so on. I kind of liked it because I took it and I used it. I changed it a bit, added points that I thought were important or the politicians may be interested, and I sent it while there were European elections. Now I didn't do anything for some time, but I'm thinking with one of my friend to again put some short letter and to send it to some politician in Czech Republic. I'll see about it, but I hope to do it. So this is also one of the way.
Sounds like a really good idea, and I just saw it in my inbox. I mean, this UAP coalition of Netherlands, is Joachim Dekkers, right? Is
Yeah,
his name
yeah.
is? Yes, and he was also, we also talked to him in Baveno. He was there, tall guy, yeah, very nice guy. And I just saw my email right now, and they're sending this letter to European Commission to the staffers. And I think they had a meeting with the staffers, Beatrice Villarroel and a Swedish. Professor Anders Warel and who was the last person? I can't remember. But they had a meeting with the European Commission, some staffers there, and they want to kind of take the stigma, and they're coming with a proposal of how to take the stigma out of this UAP research. There should be some provisions in this European Research Area Act. So this science like the UAP topic is not frowned upon. So they're trying to mitigate that problem of scientific taboo in this European Research Act.
And as one of the maybe last questions, I'm curious, did you ever see yourself some UFO or did you ever have some experience?
No, I have never seen a flying saucer. I've never seen a flying saucer. So, but I know a lot of people who have. And I mean, and this is also when you're speaking out and being vocal about it and being public about this topic. I mean, people, they come afterwards and confide in you, and they tell you the stories. And I mean, I've talked to a lot of people over the years who have seen some really, really high strangeness, and I mean, also claim to have seen beings. And I've talked to several abductees, and I mean, this is pretty heavy information that they're telling you. So I'm totally convinced that there is something going on. But whoever it is, I mean, the explanations are probably many. There are probably many explanations to these phenomena, not a phenomenon, but phenomena. So.
Yeah.
But this is why we want science to get engaged in this. We want to find out what's going on. I mean, but science has been sleeping for so many years. But now it's time to wake up and smell the coffee.
Yeah. And do you have anything else you would like to say to this interview, whether it's about the current UAP news or about
No, I just
Denmark?
I just want to encourage people to get involved in some way. I mean, we all have different roles in this area, but I mean, you have your skill set, a certain expertise, and make use of it, and join some organization or do independent work, or you can do activism, you could do research, or there are a lot of things that you can do art, for example, if you're an artist. I mean, there's so many venues that you can engage with this topic, and it's so broad, and there's so many interesting things that you can work with. Maybe it's something to do with the environment and energy. It's something very, very tangible, something nuts and bolts physical stuff that you want to do, or it could be citizen science. It could be a lot of different things. So get involved. I would say that's my main message. And when you get involved, try not to focus too much on what your differences are with other people. Just you have to have a kind of a margin of just letting people do their stuff. I mean, and you don't have to always agree on everything. And all people, different people, they have their own style. I mean, we're all human beings, so try not to focus too much on that. So and try to cooperate.
Exactly. And I also kind of feel it. I was talking with one of my friends. We all both cover kind of the news about UFOs, and that we kind of can see that, some people in the UFO community don't have to really like each other so much. But when you look at what they're saying about the main messages they're saying, it could be really unifying. They kind of
Yeah,
say similar
yeah.
things. So
But now I want to ask you a question. I
sure.
think you had a conference in the Czech Republic quite recently. What is the main takeaway from that conference? I was not able to attend, but can you just talk a little bit about that, perhaps?
Sure, sure. I can talk about it. It is about, I mean, it's a very open conference. It is both open to academic people, but we also have kind of the new age perspectives and the spiritual perspective. So you find kind of everything. Or even there was a talk about Turin Shroud, for instance. So even a bit about history or, kind of mystical things. But yeah, it was wonderful community. I always enjoy the community of it. We talked a bit about the age of disclosure because the conference happened like 2, 3 days after the age of disclosure was released. So
Okay.
obviously it was a topic to talk about at the panel discussion and so on. And it's a kind of conference that always kind of like gathering of a community, and I personally very much like it, and it will be again this year. So, and I am really looking forward to see other events in Europe.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
in Seoul, in Baveno. It was my first conference I went outside of Czech Republic.
Yes.
So I hope to see other things, maybe even in Denmark or wherever, right? So we we
Yeah.
we should meet there.
Hopefully there will be a big conference in Europe again. I don't think the Soul Foundation will probably not host anything in Europe. Maybe it will. I think I heard Gary Nolan talking about on a podcast that maybe it was kind of be this one day event, and more focused on a more narrow topic. So it's I don't think they will have kind of this huge conference that they had at Lago Maggiore again soon, but hopefully they could. I mean, I hope they will, because it was also very easy to go to from a European perspective, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to. I've been in Washington D.C. a couple of times, and it's takes more of your energy to cross the Atlantic than to just like a kind of a 1 hour flight from Copenhagen, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I would say that the upcoming year, this year has a lot of potential.
Oh yeah, and even on Tuesday, I mean, James Fox is hosting a
That's true.
on when people watch this will probably already have taken place. But from our perspective in time, right now it's on Tuesday, and it's at the National Press Club, where he's hosting this witness from the Virginia 1996 crash retrieval case, you could say. I can also just encourage people to watch James Fox's Moment of Contact documentary, which has just been updated with new people. I have not watched the update
I
yet,
also didn't.
but I will tune in on Tuesday and watch his press conference, and then we also here in 26 will have Steven Spielberg's the day of disclosure. Is that correct? In June, I
I
think.
believe so, something like that.
But anyway, he will have a huge movie coming out later this year. So, and there will probably be more hearings, hopefully. and more
I'm
drone
sure.
sightings.
Oh. So yeah, I mean, lots of to look forward to. So thank you so much for joining me here, and let's hope we see each other around maybe on some other conference in here around in Europe.
I'm sure we will, Jan. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was a real pleasure and nice seeing you again. And we also had a good time in Baveno.
That's right.
Take care. Have a great Sunday.
You too.
Bye bye. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.